Hi, I'm Steve Wiggins and welcome to my YouTube channel. Some of you may have seen some of my earlier videos where I was discussing the books I've written, and you may have wondered why the scene was so whitewashed on one side, kind of like I was being abducted by aliens or something. This is a new mode of communication for me, although I used to lecture, so I've had some experience not exactly in front of a camera, but in front of an audience. And so hopefully as time goes on, to get a little bit better at this, and you'll find the presentation a little bit more professional, or at least more entertaining. So I'm basically going to talk this time about why you should bother listening to me. There are millions of videos on YouTube, right? And the first time I heard about YouTube, I thought, what's a YouTube? Is it like, I thought of something like the London Underground or something like that. You know, personal car, where it's the U on the tube or something. I had no idea what this site was about until somebody who has some internet understanding, internet savvy said, hey, you know, if you've got a Gmail account, you've got a YouTube account. And I said, really? I've got a YouTube account? Don't use it? And they said, well, why don't you put some things on? Well, I've been writing a blog for almost 10 years now, and it became clear to me that the written word is not exactly dead. I write books, so I can't believe that, but it does indicate to me that maybe people would rather watch somebody who's doing something than sit down and read what they have to say. So I thought maybe I'd start sharing some of my thoughts by YouTube, and that's what I'm here to do. Now, I suppose the first question that might come to mind is, why in the world should you listen to me? I mean, who is this guy? Why would I want to listen to him? He looked all washed out and like he didn't know what he was doing. Well, one of the answers has to do with what's in this tube here. Notice the fancy decorations that I made myself. Let me show you what's inside. Let's see here. We've got some pieces of paper. You've probably already guessed that. And surprisingly, the biggest one of these isn't the one that's the most important. I'm going to show you one of them. So the reason that you might listen to me is this piece of paper here. Ooh, are you impressed yet? Well, I'm not really, but still. In case you can't read it, it is actually after all in Latin. This is a doctoral diploma from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. And yes, I hold a PhD from a world-class research university, and I used to teach in a higher education setting, and actually in several. And you pay good money for that kind of thing, right? You take a college course, set you back a few $1,000s. Well, I've got the same training. I've got even some background in that area. And here, I'm giving it away for free on YouTube. So why wouldn't you want to watch, you know, they spend 5-10 minutes of your life watching this guy talk about things. What is my doctorate in? Well, this piece of paper here, parchment actually, says, by the way, I can tell you the difference between parchment and paper, but I think I'll save that for a later presentation. This paper here says, parchment, says that I have a doctorate in a very specific area, and that has to do with the goddess Ashra in my first book. One of the things that people don't often realize about doctoral programs is you don't really write a doctorate in an area. You become an area specialist. I mentioned this in my first video. So you kind of specialize in something you really are interested in, and you know an awful lot about that. And in some PhD programs, you have to do a lot of wider reading of other areas. I did that on my own as well, and know quite a bit about it. So you really aren't an expert on everything. You're an expert in one thing, and that's usually a very narrow topic. Mine happened to be the goddess Ashra. Well, the area surrounding the goddess Ashra has to do with what we call the ancient Near East. The better phrase for that these days would be ancient Western Asia. Ancient Near East assumes that an Eastern orientation is what we're talking about, and that assumes that we're in the West. But there are people, believe it or not, living in the East for whom ancient East Asia is ancient West Asia. So, or actually, that's not right. People who live in the East for whom the ancient Near East is the ancient Near West. That's what I meant to say. And so those people would think ancient Near East is not east of them. What is east of them? Well, the Pacific Ocean. So you don't live in the Pacific Ocean. There's no ancient Near East for somebody who lives in, say, China or even places like Japan or any of the places in the Far East. So we tend to call it ancient West Asia because that is descriptive. It is in the western part of Asia. It's not in Eastern Asia. And it is ancient in that it happened before the Bible, or at least during the time the Bible was written. There's some debate about how long ancient Near East goes. But more than that, what I was trying to do was what we broadly call history of religions. So my approach has been historical. I look at how ideas develop. And that was what my book on Asherah was about, how the idea of Asherah developed. And so my specialization, in addition to learning to read several ancient languages and whatnot, included learning how to understand how history works when it comes to religious ideas. Where did that idea come from? It's always been a driving factor in my academic work, both in the articles I've written, the books, as well as my teaching. Where did that idea come from? And so I decided that I would start doing some YouTube presentations to start talking about these topics. As you can see from the books behind me on either side here, got lots of books. I haven't read all of them, but I've read many of them that are on various topics, and they're not all on the Bible or ancient Near East. I spent many years teaching Bible at a small seminary in Wisconsin called Nashotah House. I've also had some experience as a publisher, as an editor in the publishing industry, and also in the area of religious studies. So I've got quite a bit of background in this area, as you can tell by the no longer quite young visage that I once had. I'm not a new kid on the block. I've been around for a few years, but I've been studying this stuff my entire life. I was so interested in it that I decided to get a doctorate in the field. And that information is shared not only in my books, but it will be shared also on my blog. I have the address for the blog at the end of this short presentation. So you can check that out if you want. If you're more into the textual side of things, I write on the blog daily. And I will be doing some more YouTube posts talking about various topics, specific topics in the future. And if you're curious as to why you should listen, well, this piece of paper is more than just a very expensive piece of work of calligraphy. It actually indicates that I've dedicated a considerable part of my life and financial resources and whatnot to learning about a topic not because I had to, but because I wanted to, and that interest never goes away. And you'll find that as you start to listen to some of what I have to say if you decide to ever come back. If not, if you want to take a look at my blog, you'll also see it there. But there's a lot of things I would like to talk about that are related to this, and some of them not very widely related. And so I'm here basically to share with you some information that I've learned, that since I'm not in a classroom at the moment, I don't have a place to give it away anymore, so I thought I'd give it to YouTube and see what you want to do with it. So thank you for your few minutes. Appreciate your time, and hope you'll come back and maybe watch some of the other videos that I plan to put on in the future. And I hope you've enjoyed the 3 or 4 that I put on about the books I've written and the one I am writing at the moment. Thanks for your time. Is it off yet?